Number 5581, City of Auburn has designated meeting locations as virtual for all regular, special, and study session meetings of the City Council and for the committees, boards, and commissions of the city.
Ready. See. Dress. Come.
If you haven't already risen, please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
I please. A bird. Art. I have.
Thank you. Please be seated. And we are going to begin with some very special presentations this evening. We will do roll call and commence with the business of the council meeting after these presentations. I would like to, well, I'll go up to the podium and I would ask that Chief O'Neill please join me. And Chief O'Neill is here with us this evening to present two promotions in the Auburn Police Department. Chief, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council, directors, Auburn community. We're here today to celebrate the career and accomplishment of several members of the Auburn Police Department. We'll be recognizing Officer Tyson Luce as he's promoted to sergeant, Sergeant Todd Byers as he's promoted to commander, and then a little later, Assistant Chief Collier as he's sworn in as your newest police chief. I'll start first with the promotion of Officer Tyson Luce. Officer Tyson Luce was hired on March of 2013. During his time at Auburn PD, Tyson Luce has served as a patrol officer, field training officer, motor officer, EBOC instructor, technical accident investigator, guild executive board member. He served on the crime scene team. Tyson Luce is a straightforward and honest, hardworking officer. He's highly skilled in law enforcement leadership and law enforcement skills. His work ethic is second to none. Tyson Luce leads by example and models what is expected of an officer and a leader in the Auburn Police Department. Tyson Luce is dedicated to the mission of protecting and serving our community. Tonight, Tyson is going to take on a huge step in his career as he becomes a sergeant. Being a sergeant means that you're expected to interpret and apply ordinances to a wide variety of situations. You supervise and train personnel. You weigh in on discipline, praise and acknowledge those who exceed expectations, and hold those accountable who need remedial training. You develop policies and procedures and act as a liaison between administration and the officers. This is my favorite part, going back to when I was a sergeant. You'll be the most powerful person in the city at 3 o'clock in the morning. At this time, I'd like to ask Tyson to come forward. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. Today, I pledge my commitment of the role of sergeant for the city of Auburn.
Today, I pledge my commitment to the role of sergeant for the city of Auburn.
On my honor,
On my honor,
I will never betray my badge,
I will never betray my badge,
my integrity, my character, or the public trust.
my integrity, my character, or the public trust.
I value leadership and I accept the tedious responsibility that comes with that privilege.
I value leadership and I accept the tedious responsibility that comes with that privilege.
I will always demonstrate the courage to hold myself and others accountable.
I will always demonstrate the courage to hold myself and others accountable.
I will uphold the Constitution of the United States and the state of Washington,
I will uphold the Constitution of the United States and the state of Washington,
as well as the mission, the guiding principles, and the history of the Auburn Police Department.
as well as the mission, the guiding principles of the Auburn Police Department.
Come around here and sign. Shortly, I'll ask Tyson's wife to come up here and pin his badge. The pinning of the badge is a tradition, and it's a significant one. It's one of the things where we visibly and clearly bring a loved one up to publicly demonstrate their support for their law enforcement officer. This support is essential as our officers can't do this difficult job well without the strong support from family and friends. The badge itself represents the authority granted by our community of law enforcement officers. It is the shape of a shield signifying our core responsibility to protect those who cannot protect themselves. At this time, I'd like to ask Tyson's wife to come up and present his badge. At this time, I will now be promoting Sergeant Todd Byers to the position of commander. Sergeant Todd Byers will be filling the spot that was vacated by Steve Stalker, who retired last week after 31 years of service with the Auburn Police Department, the Auburn community. Todd Byers was hired in November of 1996. He came to us as a lateral police officer from the city of Las Cruces in New Mexico. During his time at Auburn PD, Todd Byers has served as a patrol officer, a field training officer, a basic law enforcement academy TAC officer, a motor officer. He's currently an EVOC instructor, an accident reconstructionist. He's a field training officer instructor for the state of Washington. And most recently, he served as the graveyard patrol sergeant. Todd is straightforward and honest. You always know where you stand with Todd. He's highly skilled when it comes to the duties of a law enforcement officer, and he's highly skilled in leadership. He has influence. When Todd speaks, others listen. Todd is very hardworking, dedicates himself to the city of Auburn and the Auburn Police Department. Todd leads from the front, and his people love working for him. Todd is dedicated to the mission of protecting and serving our community. Todd's officers describe him as being connected to the job, and he hasn't forgot where he came from. Tonight, Todd is going to take on new responsibilities in the next step in his career as a commander. Being a commander is an incredibly important job, but it's much more complex than being a sergeant. It means people are the job even more so when you are a sergeant. It means that at 0300, you're no longer the most powerful man in the city anymore. Sergeant Luce is. But what it does mean is that you are the chief at that time, and you always have to be prepared for that. Because Sergeant Luce is going to call you and ask what you should do. And then you'll notify the chief after making a decision. It will be your responsibility to build relationships internally and externally to accomplish department goals and initiatives. It means you get to take ideas and put them into a workable, accountable, and operational system. You now supervise leaders who will not, and while not as rewarding at times as being a sergeant, it is still incredibly rewarding and every much as important. Officers will refer to you as their boss's boss. I could have Todd Byers come forward at this time. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. Today, I pledge my commitment to the role of commander for the city of Auburn.
Today I place my,
It's been a long day.
yes, it has.
Today, I pledge my commitment to the role of commander.
Today I pledge my role.
Should we read it together?
Yeah, let's do this together.
Okay. Today, I pledge my commitment
Today I pledge my commitment
to the role of commander
to the role of commander
for the city of
for
Auburn.
the city of Auburn.
On my honor,
On my honor,
I will never betray my badge,
I will never betray my badge,
my integrity,
my integrity,
my character, or the public trust.
my character, or public trust.
I value leadership,
I value leadership
and I accept the tedious responsibility that comes with that privilege.
and accept the tedious responsibility that comes with that privilege.
I will always demonstrate the courage to hold myself and others accountable.
I will always demonstrate the courage to hold myself and others accountable.
I will uphold the Constitution of the United States
I will uphold the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Washington,
and the state of Washington,
as well as the mission,
as well as the mission,
the guiding principles,
the guiding principles,
and the history of the Auburn Police
and
Department.
history of the Auburn Police Department.
This time, we will move forward with the pinning of the badge. The tradition of badge pinning is a significant one. It is one of the things where we visibly and clearly bring a loved one up to publicly demonstrate their support for their law enforcement officer. This support is essential as our officers can't do this difficult job well without the strong support from family and friends. The badge itself represents the authority granted by our community of law enforcement officers. It is the shape of the shield signifying our core responsibility to protect those who cannot protect themselves. At this time, I'd like to ask Gloria Byers to come up and pin Commander Byers' badge.
Thank you, Chief O'Neill. Congratulations, Sergeant Luce and Commander Byers. We look forward to many years of additional dedicated service. Don't plan on going anywhere. Just telling you that right now. So along with the excitement of this evening comes a bit of sad time as well. We are saying farewell to Chief Dan O'Neill. I want to share with you a little bit about Chief and add a little bit of fun towards the end so you see that police work, while it is very, very serious work, if you can't have a little bit of fun while you're doing that work, then you need to rethink the line of work that you're in. And that goes for all of us. Dan O'Neill came to the Auburn Police Department in July of 1999. At that time, Auburn's mayor was Charles Chuck Booth. I am the third mayor to hold office since Dan's tenure began, and I am proud to say that I am the mayor that appointed him to be your chief. When Dan first started with us, he was making a whopping $18.34 an hour. Now, over 20 years later, I do believe that his wage has improved at least slightly. What hasn't changed in that time is Dan's desire to help the Auburn Police Department be a premier law enforcement agency. And while at the helm only 2 short years, he has had a positive and lasting impact on the future of the department, not just as chief, but throughout his career with Auburn. From the training of recruits, entry-level and laterals, new to the APD team, his time as a canine officer, a sergeant, a detective, a commander, and eventually our chief. I appointed him as an interim in 2019, and he became the permanent chief in 2020. Now, we had a lot of conversations prior to him being appointed. In fact, I wasn't even in the state of Washington when those conversations began in earnest late at night. Dan, are you sure you're up for this task? Yes, Mayor, I am. Dan, are you sure your family is up for what I am going to ask of you and what the city is going to ask of you? Yes, Mayor, they are. And your family has proven that over these last 2 years. And I want to personally apologize for all of the time that I kept him away from home. But I am also going to say thank you for allowing him to serve the city in such a meaningful and impactful way. Neither of us could have ever predicted a pandemic, social unrest, and major reforms to come at us all at one time. But he faced them all with both courage and grace. It is certain that our community, our police department, and our entire staff have benefited from having Dan here with us during this time. We truly wish Dan and his family nothing but the best with their new chapter, and I hope you know just how much you will be missed. But before you go, there are a few stories that were shared that we think will help people truly understand the kind of guy you are. I will start with the one that I enjoy the most, and this one is a personal one. At those 3 a.m. when Sergeant Luce will be the most important and most powerful person in the city of Auburn, and that goes up the chain of command to commander and to either assistant chief or to chief, I get the phone call. So by 3:15, I'm probably getting the phone call on the issue that you were dealing with at 3 a.m. And Dan would always start out those phone calls with, "Hi, Mayor, how are you?" It's a little odd to be asking that at 3 a.m. And so I took to saying, "Well, Dan, I think I'm going to hold off telling you how I'm doing until you tell me why you called. Because I don't think you're calling me at 3 a.m. just to find out how my evening went." So we would laugh about that. And he now doesn't even ask me that at all. He goes, "Hi, Mayor, it's Dan." He doesn't care how I'm doing it. No, I'm just kidding. He does. Let me share a few of the stories with you, Dan, and you have time to get back at these officers if you can identify who has shared the story. One of our current commanders that trained you shared with me that you were in danger of being let go after your field training. But for some reason, the decision was made to keep you, but to make sure to check on you throughout your probation. Well, whoever was checking on you must have done a pretty good job, because you have had a long and incredible career. Another officer mentioned that when Dan was their commander, that a promise was made that if Ohio State won the national championship, he would let the officers wear beards. And if anyone knows Dan, you know how much he loves the Buckeyes. At halftime, the Buckeyes were behind. We're pretty sure, we're pretty sure that the TV ratings shot through the roof for the second half as the Ohio State fans from Auburn police tuned in to cheer them on because Dan said that if the Buckeyes win, they could all grow beards. So they all tuned in and cheered on the Buckeyes. And it must have been the key because the Buckeyes pulled out the win and line officers under Dan were clean shaven no more. At least the ones that could grow a beard. And the last memory came in from an officer playing in his first APD Turkey Bowl with Dan as a teammate. According to this now commander, he said, and I quote, Dan, this isn't me saying this, Dan, I'm quoting. Dan is very unathletic. Yet Dan somehow managed to outrun a much younger officer and caught a deep ball for a touchdown. It was like a wounded animal running. So Dan, it is clear that you are leaving a great impression on those that worked with you and for you. And I am proud of the time that we have had to work together in the many roles that you have performed. And all of us in Auburn are deeply grateful for your dedication and for your service. Is this one, I think this one is Dan, if you would come forward. We unfortunately didn't do a pinning ceremony for you because it was during COVID. And as we tried to do one, you caught wind of it and said, no, we'll do it later. And now later has come and we can't do it. We had to do it all over again. This is for you. It'll be fun for you to pack. And it says, City of Auburn presented to Daniel O'Neill, Chief of Police, Auburn Police Department, 1999 to 2021, in appreciation for your 22 years of dedicated service to the Auburn community. You will be missed more than you know. Oh, there's some other goodies in here as well. So I will give you, probably don't want to hold on to that unless you want to hold it out in the audience.
No, I'll put it back in the box. I'll let them drop it.
A few other thank yous. If you have anything you would like to say.
I'd just like to say thank you for the opportunities I've had over the last 22 years. I'm going to have an experience of the experiences that I've gained over the last 22 years, and the friendships will last me a lifetime. The past 2 years, it has been a real honor working with all of the directors, council, you mayor. And I believe that you should always leave things better than they were when you got them. And I think the Auburn community can be very proud of the Auburn Police Department that they have today. I think through the work of the leadership team that I've been grateful to work with at the police department, we have been able to have a positive impact on the department, a positive impact on the community. And I think as Mark Collier gets appointed to chief tonight, I think he will, and the rest of the command staff will take the department to the next level. I'd also like to personally thank the Police Advisory Committee. We put that together a year ago under some very trying times for our community. And it has been amazing to see us bring a diverse group of people representing our community together so that we can learn from each other. They've learned from us, I've learned from them, and it has been a real honor to work with them in my role as chief. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and next, as Chief O'Neill has said, it is time for us to swear in a new police chief. I have met with numerous members of the Auburn Police Department. I value their opinions. I wanted to hear from them who they thought their next leader should be. There are some very trying times in our nation, in our state, and in our community. And I needed to know that the person that was going to fill the role that Chief O'Neill is retiring from was a person who was trusted, who was respected, and who knew the officers. There was some talk of whether we should go outside and do a national recruiting opportunity or whether it should be an internal promotion. Now, I could have justified either. But after listening to every one of the officers that came into my office, sat down, and honestly told me when I asked them the question, who they thought the next chief of police should be, there was no other answer than the current assistant chief, Mark Collier. Now that speaks volumes. When I heard from at least 15 different officers in varying levels of leadership within the Auburn Police Department, and to hear from every one of them without question that Mark Collier was the person for the job for now and into the future. Who would I be to go against all of that? It was already what I wanted to do, but I wanted to hear it from those who are going to be working with and for Mark every day. So Mark, if you would please come forward. Mark is the type of person that is very trusted and trusting. He believes in accountability and he believes in doing the right thing. And he proves that each and every day. And I am thrilled that when I asked him if he would be willing to serve as Auburn's next police chief, he put a smile on his face and he said, yes, I will. And so now I would like to swear in our new police chief. Mark, I've broken this up so it's in easy chunks, I hope. And do we need to raise hands or anything? I don't think so. All right. So if you will repeat after me. I, Mark Collier, do solemnly swear or affirm
I, Mark Collier, do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington
and all valid local ordinances,
and all valid local ordinances,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
perform and discharge
perform and discharge
the duties of the office of Chief of Police
the duties of the office of Chief of Police
for the city of Auburn, Washington,
for the city of Auburn, Washington,
to which I have been appointed
to which I have been appointed
according to law,
according to law,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. And I will get a pen so you can sign this. Would you like to say a few words, Mark? I know you don't probably, but Mark, would you say a few
I
words?
will. I will. Most of you know me. I kind of speak straight to the point. First off, I'd like to thank my family, my wife Paula, who's been there my 30 years in law enforcement. She was there prior to me becoming a police officer, and she stuck with me the whole time. I appreciate the support of the men and women of the police department. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. And so I want to thank the Auburn community as well. It's been 27 years that I've served the city, and I wouldn't change anything. I love it here.
Well, we love having you here. And now, Paula, I can't say it as eloquently as Chief O'Neill did when he was talking about the pinnings, but it is so important that family, a loved one, be the one who pins the officer, because you are part of this as well. And I apologize in advance for all the times I take him away from something with family, but we do appreciate your willingness to share him with the community. Yeah. Thank you. All right. And so with that, council, we are going to take a, how many minutes? 20-minute recess, and we will be back in 20 minutes. Thank you. Nicely done, everyone.
Well done.
All right. Good evening, everyone. We will reconvene the Auburn City Council meeting for Monday, October 4th, 2021. And we'll give council a moment or two to
Turn their cameras back on.
turn their cameras on, and then we will do roll. And there we go. All right. I believe we have, let's see, we have at least a majority of the council. So Sean, if you will please call roll.
Deputy Mayor DeCoursey,
Here.
Councilmember Baggett,
Here.
Councilmember Brown,
Here.
Councilmember J-Raj,
I'm here.
Councilmember Malinga,
Here.
Councilmember Stern,
Here.
and Councilmember Trout Manuel.
Excused. All right, thank you. Council, thank you for your patience during the recess. As you can imagine, we had quite a room full of officers and their families to celebrate these promotions and to say farewell to Chief O'Neill, who has served our community so incredibly well. We will be doing promotions similar to this in the future. We decided that it was important that those promotions be made more public, and so you can expect to see more of those in the future. Excuse me. We will move on now to proclamations. And we have 3 of them tonight that I will be reading. The first is on domestic violence awareness. Whereas domestic violence is a serious crime that affects people of all races, ages, gender identities, socioeconomic levels, religions, backgrounds, beliefs, and abilities. And whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month provides an excellent platform to show support for domestic violence advocates, crisis hotline staff, victim service organizations, prosecutors, and law enforcement officers that serve our community and provide the residents of Washington State the opportunity to learn more about preventing domestic violence and to show support for the numerous organizations and individuals who provide critical advocacy, resources, hope, and assistance to victims. And whereas more than 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men in the United States report having experienced domestic violence, stalking, sexual assault, or physical assault by an intimate partner during their lifetimes. And whereas 1 in 15 children are exposed to intimate partner violence each year, and 90% of their children are eyewitnesses to this violence, and children that grow up in violent homes are believed to be abused and neglected at a higher rate than the national average, often resulting in lifelong trauma. And whereas intimate partner violence accounts for 15% of all violent crime, at least 19% of reported domestic violence involves the use of weapons, and the presence of a gun in a domestic violence situation increases the risk of homicide by 500%. And whereas domestic violence costs the nation over $8.3 billion annually in medical expenses, police and court costs, shelters, foster care, sick leave, absenteeism, and non-productivity. And now, therefore, I, Nancy Backus, Mayor of the City of Auburn, do hereby proclaim the month of October as Domestic Violence Awareness and Prevention Month in the City of Auburn, and ask all residents to participate in efforts to recognize the serious impacts of domestic violence and work toward eliminating domestic violence within our community. Dated this 4th day of October, 2021. And the next proclamation is for anti-bullying. Whereas bullying continues to impact our nation's youth, about 1 in 4 children in the United States is bullied on a regular basis.
And whereas more than 3.2 million American children are victims of bullying each year, and 71% of students report incidents of bullying as a problem at their school. And whereas bullying can take many forms, including verbal, physical, and most recently in cyberspace, and can happen in many places on and off school grounds. And whereas it is important for city agencies, school district, community organizations, youth leaders, and community residents to pledge to continue to host discussions, programs, activities with a strong message to continue to help raise awareness and prevention. And whereas the City of Auburn, in collaboration with the Auburn School District, are united in their efforts to call attention to the issue of bullying in schools, cyberspace, and workplaces by developing educational and prevention awareness programs to ensure that all students have access to a safe and secure educational environment. And now, therefore, I, Nancy Backus, Mayor of the City of Auburn, Washington, do hereby proclaim October 2021 as National Anti-Bullying Month in the City of Auburn, and call upon all residents to come together with a unified commitment to the education and prevention of bullying within our communities and schools, and support for causes like Autumn Stops Bullying, one shirt at a time, dated this 4th day of October, 2021. And finally, this evening, we have a proclamation for Indigenous Peoples Day. Whereas the second Monday of October is commonly celebrated as Indigenous Peoples Day in many states and jurisdictions across the United States. And whereas the City of Auburn is adjacent to the Muckleshoot Indian Tribe, a federally recognized tribe whose membership is composed of descendants of the Duwamish and Upper Puyallup people who inhabited central Puget Sound for thousands of years before non-Indian settlement, and whose leaders signed the treaties of Point Elliott and Medicine Creek. And whereas the City of Auburn recognizes that Indigenous people and Native American tribes have made and continue to make invaluable contributions to the diversity, arts, knowledge, labor, technology, science, philosophy, and economy of the state of Washington, and their historical and cultural contributions, particularly those of the Muckleshoot tribe, have substantially shaped the character of the city. And whereas in 2019, the City of Auburn passed the Inclusive Auburn Initiative to eliminate systemic causes of racial disparities in the city and to promote inclusion and create opportunities for every resident in the city, which includes promoting policies and practices that ensure equitable access and opportunities for Indigenous peoples. And now, therefore, I, Nancy Backus, Mayor of the City of Auburn, do hereby proclaim October 12th, 2021 as Indigenous Peoples Day in the City of Auburn, and encourage all residents, businesses, and organizations to recognize and celebrate the thriving culture and value that Indigenous peoples add to our city, dated this 4th day of October, 2021. All right, we will move on to new business. We have no agenda modifications tonight, correct?
No, Your Honor.
All right. We have no new business this evening.
No, Your Honor.
All right. We have no public hearing, so we will move to audience participation. This is the place on the agenda where the public is invited to speak to the City Council on any issue. For virtual participation, participants can submit written comments via mail, fax, or email. All written comments must be received prior to 5 p.m. on the day of the scheduled meeting and must be 350 words or less. Please mail comments to City of Auburn, attention Sean Campbell, City Clerk, 25 West Main Street, Auburn, Washington, 98001. Please fax comments to attention Sean Campbell, City Clerk, 253-804-3116, or you may email publiccomment@auburnwa.gov. Sean, do we have any public comment this evening?
Yes, Your Honor. Teresa Hudgens expressed concerns regarding garbage around the waterways in Auburn and ways to volunteer to help clean. And Sarah Rose Osry expressed concerns about the increased crime in the City of Auburn.
Thank you. All right, we have no additional correspondence this evening. We will move to council ad hoc committee reports. Council ad hoc committee chairs may report on the status of their ad hoc council committee progress on assigned tasks and may give their recommendation to the city council, if any. Currently, the one ad hoc committee we have is for finance, and that is chaired by Councilmember Baggett.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Council Ad Hoc Finance Committee, consisting of Councilmember Jay Raj and myself, reviewed 53 pages of 2021 claims vouchers totaling $2.5 million, dated October 4th, 2021. The committee also reviewed payroll vouchers for the period September 17th through September 29th, 2021, in the total amount of $2.8 million. All questions by the committee for the Finance Department were answered to the committee's satisfaction. And upon completion of our review, we recommend council approval of these vouchers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Baggett. All right, we will move on to the consent agenda. All matters listed on the consent agenda are considered by the City Council to be routine and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed. Deputy Mayor DeCoursey.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown.
I would like to second that motion, Your Honor.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor DeCoursey.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight's consent agenda consists of the minutes of September 20th, 2021 regular council meeting, the minutes of the September 27th, 2021 study session, claims vouchers and payroll vouchers as described by Councilmember Baggett and recommended for approval by council by the Finance Committee, and also setting a public hearing date for the sale of real property, setting a public hearing for declaring real property surplus, and then finally, contract award number 21-17 to American West Construction, LLC, for project number CP 1612 for the Auburn Arts and Cultural Center. The Auburn Arts and Cultural Center project will renovate this historic property and the building the city purchased back in 2016. And we did some previous work on this, but this construction phase of the work is anticipated to begin in October of this year and will be completed in September of next year, making a grand new Auburn Cultural Arts Center.
Thank you. Councilmember Stearns, did you have a question or a comment?
I had a question regarding the cultural center, and it was answered by the deputy mayor in his thorough presentation.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Are there any other questions or comments about the consent agenda? If not, if you would please unmute. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Consent agenda passes. We have no unfinished business, so we will move to ordinances. Ordinance number 6834, an ordinance relating to the membership of the Junior City Council and amending section 2.07.040 of the Auburn City Code. Do we have a motion? Deputy Mayor DeCoursey.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 6834.
Thank you. Councilmember Jay Raj.
I'd like to second that motion, please.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor DeCoursey.
Thank you, Mayor. The Auburn City Junior City Council membership was changed quite a few years ago to have alternate members. We actually had 9 regular position members and 9 alternates. This ordinance will change that to where we would have 2 alternate members versus 9, and will also create a advisory committee that would allow the owners to be on membership recruitment of the Junior City Council.
Thank you. Questions or comments? All right, if you would please unmute. Excuse me, all those in favor of ordinance number 6834, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion passes. All right, ordinance number 6835, an ordinance relating to abandoned utility services and clarifying the process for reestablishing utility services, amending sections 13.06.140 and 13.20.235 of the Auburn City Code. Councilmember Stearns.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to adopt ordinance number 6835.
Thank you. Councilmember Baggett.
I'll second that, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilmember Stearns.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ordinance 6835 would amend the Auburn City Code to clarify disconnection of water and sewer utility service. The change makes the code more closely follow the city's practice of locking off meters before they are removed permanently.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? All right, all those in favor of ordinance number 6835, please unmute and say aye.
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 All opposed, please say no. The motion passes. All right, moving to resolutions. Resolution number 5622, a resolution approving the South King Housing and Homelessness 2022 Work Plan and 2022 Operating Budget. Do we have a motion? Deputy Mayor DeCoursey.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt resolution number 5622.
Thank you. Councilmember Malinga.
I second that motion, Your Honor.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor DeCoursey.
Thank you, Mayor. As the mayor mentioned, this is a resolution to approve the SCIP 2022 work plan and operating budget. Each local jurisdiction of the 9 members of SCIP are required to pass this legislation in order for SCIP to have an adopted budget and an adopted work plan. And we had a presentation on this at our last study session.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? All right, if you would please unmute. All those in favor of resolution number 5622, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Resolution number 5627, a resolution declaring an Auburn Police Department firearm as surplus property and approving its transfer to Rainier Arms LLC. Councilmember Jayraj.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to adopt resolution number 5627.
Thank you. And Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would second that motion.
Thank you. Councilmember Jayraj.
Thank you, Your Honor. This resolution 5627 declares an Auburn Police Department firearm as a surplus property and approves its transfer to Rainier Arms LLC.
Thank you. All right, are there any questions or comments from council? Hearing none, all those in, oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Stearns.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a quick observation. On page 1, the resolution identifies a Glock 17, and on page 2, it's a Glock 19.
Thank you. We will make that correction. It's a Scrivener's error, so we will make that correction. Serial number is the same on both pages, so. Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of resolution number 5627, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion passes. All right. Council, we will move to mayor and council member reports. At this time, the mayor and city council may report on significant items associated with their appointed positions on federal, state, regional, and local organizations. We will begin with Deputy Mayor DeCoursey.
Thank you, Mayor. On September 29th, I attended the King County Affordable Housing Committee meeting. We had a very full agenda that day. And one of the items I will touch on was a briefing on the updating of regulations related to our housing choices. And one of the many presentations we had from various groups, included that of the Master Builders Association of King and Snohomish County, who have their toolkit, which they show online, of recommendations on how to streamline the process to allow us to build affordable housing quicker than what we are currently building affordable housing. Some of their recommendations included reducing building setback requirements in local jurisdictions, reducing street widths. They made an example of some of the street widths in some jurisdictions that are much wider than they need to be in relation to being able to provide more lots or more housing on lots. Looking at reduced parking for single-family residences, looking at lot size averaging. And one they looked at was adopting form-based code, which means to package land use regulations that use a physical form rather than separation of use as the organizing principle for the code. These land use regulations are adopted in the city or county code and represent innovative alternatives to conventional zoning regulations. There was a lot of recommendations regarding zoning, various regulations regarding the ADU use, looking at allowing duplexes on the corners of lots and allowing duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes in areas zoned for single family. So these recommendations are all being considered by the Affordable Housing Committee, and we will be reviewing these at the next meeting and making recommendations to local jurisdictions as we go forward. And then on Sunday, yesterday, on behalf of the mayor, I was made the opening address to the Auburn Symphony Orchestra for their first in-person presentation since March of 2020. And this presentation, the performance was held at the Federal Way Performing Arts Center. And as I mentioned, as the mayor has mentioned, we look forward to the return of the Auburn Symphony Orchestra to the Auburn Performing Arts Center at the high school very, very soon as they can possibly make that happen overall. This is the 25th season of the Auburn Symphony, and it was extremely well attended. I was very pleased to see the number of patrons that were there yesterday. Got to see a lot of people I haven't seen during this pandemic in a long time. And Councilmember Baggett and Councilmember Brown both attended with their wives. So it was very nice to see that. And the performance itself was just an excellent performance overall. So very, very good day and very well attended. And if you're not a patron of or have not gone to one of the performances of Auburn Symphony, look at their website and please participate and please attend one of their performances. That's my report.
Good. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilmember Baggett.
No report tonight, Your Honor, but bravo to the Auburn Symphony. Great show.
Excellent. Thank you. Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a short report. About 2 weeks ago, thank you to the mayor for helping to arrange a tour of our facilities, maintenance operations facility. Got to tour that as well as the wastewater and stormwater and potable water systems, which was very exciting to see what great shape our maintenance folks keep that in. And also would echo Deputy Mayor DeCourcy's lauding of the Auburn Symphony Orchestra. I hadn't been to one before, and it's probably because most of my culture is in my yogurt. And I have to commend both Councilmember Baggett as well as Deputy Mayor DeCourcy for being there at the same time that the Mariners were playing and the Seahawks were playing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Stearns.
Thank you, Your Honor. I missed the orchestra, which means I couldn't say maestro. One of my favorite words, maestro. I too want to just commend the city staff for providing me and other council members with an amazing tour of our water system. It really does me just an incredible amount of good to actually see what we are, what we're doing and how things actually work in the city of Auburn. There's just not enough that can be said about seeing things in person and smelling them in person too, I must add. But it was, and there's just some beautiful locations as well. So I'm really grateful and proud of Auburn for that. I was able to take a tour of various sections of the Green River on this past Friday, with Raya 9, the watershed resource inventory area of Puget and Sound and the Green River and the Duwamish River. And it was a tour with a number of elected officials from Kent and Tukwila, as well as county, city, and even state staff. We looked at improvements that are being made in Kent, huge improvements that are being made sort of in North Kent, and just some opportunities for making the Green River better up in Tukwila. And there is a lot of work that needs to be done, but actually there's a lot of work that is getting done. And it's all really, great news for salmon. There's more shade being planted. There's more natural resting areas for juvenile salmon. I learned that probably the first spawning area along the Green River is right here in Auburn. It's in the Olson Creek, which was made accessible through the new culvert that was installed. So that's really the first place on the Green River that salmon have been spawning. So it really, really good tour. I want to just grateful, and I'll be glad to show you guys around in case you want to go with me. And then lastly, I want to thank the mayor for recognizing Indigenous Peoples Day, and especially this year, where there's a lot of focus on murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls and people. It's such a big and tragic issue that affects a lot of Native Americans, including our neighbors here in the Muckleshoot Reservation, as well as down south in Puyallup. So just thank you, Mayor, for that, and thank you all. That's my report.
Thank you, Councilmember Stearns. Councilmember Jayraj.
Thank you, Your Honor. I don't have a report this evening, but I do want to thank the M&O folks for the tour that they took us on with the sewer and the wastewater treatment. And, it was an eye-opener. It was a very good tour, and the people who are managing it are Class A. They are awesome people that we need to keep them on our staff. Thank you, Your Honor.
I would agree with you. Great team of people that serve the city of Auburn. Councilmember Malinga.
Nothing to report.
Nothing. Okay. I am going to keep mine very short. Mine is going to be tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. bright and early. I will be down at the grocery outlet in Auburn because there is a competition that will take place, kind of like the supermarket sweep, I believe. It will be between the City of Kent Police versus City of Auburn Police, the Puget Sound Fire Authority versus Valley Regional Fire Authority, and then Mayor Ralph versus Mayor Backus. The proceeds of whatever we can grab down these aisles in 1 minute will all go to our respective food banks. And so I will lace my tennis shoes up tomorrow morning. I will stretch out. I will be ready to go, hopefully to bring the pride to the city of Auburn for how much we were able to get into our grocery carts in 1 minute and cross the finish line. Hopefully no injuries. I'm going to stretch out really well, so there's no hamstring pulls or anything. So that will be a lot of fun. Hopefully I will have bragging rights after tomorrow morning. So with that, we have no reason for a closed or an executive session tonight. We are adjourned. Thank you, council.